What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Monday edition of the playoff NHL Stochastic Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. Some pretty good hockey over the weekend. The games weren't particularly close, but it was still some pretty good hockey. It was a lot better than the last few weeks of the regular season. Cliffy's Habs are in action tonight. We get a couple game twos. Tampa, Florida hasn't started yet. I'm still very confused about that. But yeah, we get our first 4-game slate here tonight. We have the $10 puck drop or playoff puck drop or whatever it is, $20K to first, $17 to second. But, that's just win, baby. That's what it is. Joining me to break it down, as always, in his Shea Weber jersey. Slim Clifford, what's going on?
Not a whole lot. A few lopsided games. Carolina, New Jersey, we were talking about that on Saturday. Obviously, the game is yesterday, but we talked about that series a bit on Saturday. It was only 4-1. It felt like a much more lopsided game than that. Carolina just kind of really looks like they should. That might be 4 or 5 games at the most. Toronto beat the hell out of Ottawa last night. You and I were talking in private chat earlier today. We're kind of like, Ottawa didn't look that bad as long as the game was at even strength, but you give the Leafs 6 power plays, you're probably going to pay for it. And the Leafs scored 3 power play goals. That was the difference. You can't give your opponent 6 power plays if you hope to win a playoff series. Honestly, we'll talk about Winnipeg, St. Louis later. They're back on the slate here tonight. That was probably the best game of the first 2 days. Minnesota, Vegas last night was pretty good as well. The Western Conference off to a pretty good start. 4 games here on the board. We have that big tournament on DK. 2 of the games that we're talking about today are games that we talked about on Saturday. Both the teams that were at home are still at home, so a lot really hasn't changed. There's one lineup change from St. Louis that we'll talk about, but other than that, it's pretty much status quo. I am kind of interested more to talk about the other 2 games, not just because, obviously my Montreal Canadiens are playing, but because I think, there's more to break down in those other 2 games, just because we haven't spent any time on them yet. But as far as 4 gamers go, this is interesting because we'll get to Washington, Montreal right off the hop. It looks like Washington is going to be very, very chalky here tonight. And that's always interesting because if the chalk busts on a slate like this, then it's absolutely wide open where just about any kind of lineup can win. So from that sense, it's kind of an interesting slate here tonight.
Yeah, this slate is definitely interesting. There's some nasty cross-ice passes, though, in those first few games. Scheifele to Connor for the winner. Kaprizov to Boldy last night was disgusting. But, this is a pretty wild slate because chalky Washington, not so chalky McDavid. It's a 4-game slate. There's also Colorado. This is pretty interesting. We should get into it so we can start breaking it down. Before we do, guys, been with us all season. You're still here for the playoffs. We do really appreciate that. Thank you very much. If you do want to support us further, you can click that link in the chat. Use promo code Stochastic15. That'll get you 15% off your first week or month of any subscription. If you want to continue NHL, you can do it weekly, go week by week. We have MLB, PGA, MMA in full swing. So plenty of options there if you do want to support us. Just being here, liking the video, sharing the link, etc., is helping us out as well. So let's get into this slate. We'll get into a new game right off the hop. The Montreal Canadiens with a 2.6 total heading into Washington. The Capitals have a 3.4. The Cadbury Bunny was pretty coy about who is going to start in net. Everyone seems to think it will be Logan Thompson. He was the first off the ice. Charlie Lindgren was like, I don't know, it could play, man. But like it just seems like it's gonna be Lindgren. Or excuse me, it will be Thompson. Currently the lines as constructed: Ovechkin, Strome, Beauvillier, Wilson, Dubois, McMichael, Mangiapane, Eller, Leonard. Now Protas was skating today. He's not. I would be unbelievably shocked if he's in tonight. The coach did say game 2 is an option, but it looks like he will be out tonight. Montreal going Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky, Line, Demidov, Newhook, Gallagher, Dvorak, Anderson. It's like right off the bat, you're hit with a very important chalky decision. Strome, Ovechkin, Beauvillier, 16,900, 21.5% projected ownership. Wilson, Dubois, McMichael, 17.3% projected ownership. It's just like, it's a lot. But there are ways around it because this is a very good power play matchup. And they're going 3 forward, 2D on the power play unit. Ovechkin, Strome, Wilson, Chychrun, and Carlson. So if you are worried about the 5-on-5 ownership, there's ways to get different. You can power play stack Strome, Ovechkin, Wilson. You can do something like Carlson and Chychrun on the blue line. You can do really whatever you want. You can full stack because this is also a pretty good 5-on-5 matchup. I'm not 100% sure who you think is going to go out against the Caulfield Suzuki line. Like sometimes at home, Washington will send out Nick Dowd. Other times they'll send out Strome. Other times it's Dubois.
It'll be Dubois. I think a fair bit. I don't think you'll see. I mean, maybe a shift. I would bet on not seeing Strome, Ovechkin having single shift against the Suzuki line.
Yeah, and it's probably going to be a fair bit of Dubois line. You may see the Dowd line go out a few times against Suzuki. It's like the one line that can hold their own defensively on Montreal: Suzuki, Caulfield, Slavkovsky. Like there's still not anything great defensively. So like from that standpoint, if you wanted to go Dubois, Wilson, McMichael at 14.8, you certainly can. They have a 10.6% top 2 stack, 17.3% projected ownership. The issue I'm running into there is twofold. You're only getting one guy in the top power play unit, and you're going up against their best defensive line. So for me, like I think I would go to the Strome, Ovechkin, Beauvillier line. You can do whatever you want with Beauvillier. I'd be more likely to leave off Beauvillier and add in Wilson or something like that. They're going to go up against the middle 6 of Montreal. Like, yes, Dvorak, Gallagher, Anderson at times have been fine. But that Newhook, Demidov, Line A line is going to get absolutely steamrolled for the most part. I mean, if they can get into Washington's end, they're going to cause problems, but it's going to be high event hockey. So I'm more likely to go Washington 1 if I'm even strength stacking. But for me, like, I'm probably just going to do some sort of power play stack here. I do like Montembeault tonight. He was one of the best goalies in the league in the second half of the season. So was Logan Thompson. But it's just really hard considering how cheap they are to get away from Washington here. Like, I'm going to try to find a way to get away from Washington. I'm never a huge Washington player, like stacker in DFS. It's just like, this is a really, really good matchup. It's a really good power play matchup. For me, honestly, my favorite thing to do with Washington is use one or both of Chychrun and Carlson, and we'll get to defensemen at the end. But like, I think Strome, Ovechkin, Wilson are very, very strong plays. On the Montreal side, I really wanted to play Montreal 1 here. Then you see their price. They're the second most expensive line on the night besides Colorado 1 at $19,400. That's not super price prohibitive, and they have been an excellent line. But, that Dubois, McMichael, Wilson line has been very good defensively. You have Logan Thompson for the most likely in net. If Montreal 1 was a similar price to Washington 1, I'd be a lot more interested in it. in them. The fact that they're 19-4 and Colorado's like $1,000, not even $1,000 more. They're $20 or $1,400 more at 20,800. It's really hard to prioritize Montreal one in single entry. I think a lot of people are just gonna, for cheap one-offs, put in Demidov. I think Line is a pretty good one-off. Like, I don't think I'd full stack Montreal too. They're going to struggle defensively. They may also struggle physically. I'd be more likely to go down to Montreal 3, Dvorak, Gallagher, Anderson at 10,900. So for me, it would be some sort of Washington power play stack or Montreal 3. I don't mind one-offs on the Montreal side. Just hard to stack them at their price. If you are going super expensive, like Colorado power play stack expensive, Edmonton power play stack expensive, don't mind that third line, like a two-man Eller, Mangiapane, or Mangiapane Leonard, something like that, for super cheap two-mans. But I'm more likely going to Washington power play guys.
Yeah, I'll start with the Caps. This is a good matchup for the Ovechkin, Strome, Beauvillier line because they're not going to see Suzuki, so you're going to see the New Hook line, line, which has not been good defensively. You're going to see the Gallagher Anderson line, which they've had their moments this season, still not very strong defensively, generally speaking. So they're going to get pretty good matchups of 5-on-5, and this is a good power play spot. Montreal 2.7 times shorthanded per game since February 1st. It's not awful, but it's a little bit worse than league average. The Washington power play, the 3-4-2 defense power play, has been their best power play configuration. 10.4 goals per 60 minutes. That's pretty good for a top power play unit. The average top power play unit is at 8.4, 8.5. They're at 10.4, so they've been pretty good. So it's a good power play spot for Washington. So I would be inclined to focus on the power play guys, as you mentioned, Ovechkin, Strome, Tom Wilson in particular. Pair them with one of the defensemen. Both of the defensemen, I think, is very viable here tonight. It is a very good power play spot. Here's my issue with Washington one is that Ovechkin and Strome haven't really been that good without Protas on the ice with them. Going back to Christmas, they have 325 minutes at 5-on-5 with a bunch of different wingers other than Protas on the top line. We're using Christmas because that's when Ovechkin returned from injury. In that time, 55 shot attempts, 2.6 expected goals, 2.4 actual goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. That's basically league average stuff. So this is a line that hasn't really been that good at 5-on-5. That is really going to have to get there on the power play. And as you mentioned, there's going to be a lot of ownership on these players. Ovechkin, 26% projected. Strome, 22%. Both defensemen over 20%. So, there's going to be a lot of ownership here. So, if you're looking for a reason not to play Ovechkin and Strome in them, it's that they have not been good at 5-on-5 without Protas. Protas has legitimately been one of the best even strength forwards in the NHL this season. It's one of the reasons why Washington turned things around. Him on the top line and Dubois on the second line have been kind of the engines of those two lines. Now, Ovechkin can get there on the power play. He can get there with the empty net. Being league average offensively doesn't mean you can't score a 5-on-5. It just means that they're not a high scoring top line like some other lines. So if you don't want to play Washington, I kind of get it. But they're going to get good 5-on-5 matchups. It is a good power play matchup. So I do think you have to give him consideration. I mean, even if you don't really want to stack, Ovechkin has the highest projection of any winger here tonight. Second highest projection of any skater, only behind Nathan McKinnon. So even a one-off Ovechkin, I think, is fine. Washington 2 is interesting because I think it's their best 5-on-5 line. And if they're going to stay matched up against Suzuki, they might get a fair bit of ownership. They might actually end up with the most even strength ice time of any of the lines here tonight. And, since the Four Nations break, 2.9 expected goals, 4.1 actual goals per 60. They've been pretty good. But again, I think where this is such a good power play spot, I would want to focus on the power play guys. So, maybe you take out McMichael and you do like Ovechkin, Dubois, Wilson. Remember, Ovechkin plays both halves of the power play, and Dubois and McMichael play the second half with Ovechkin. So there is correlation to be had there, even if they're not, quote, on the top power play together. So I think I agree with you. It's just the power play guys. As far as the depth goes, like, I'm not completely sold on that third line with Leonard there. Like, Leonard is a very good prospect. It is a good matchup going up against Montreal. Don't get me wrong, but there is a difference between, playing a couple games at the end of the regular season and playing NHL playoff hockey. So I wouldn't be surprised if Taylor Radish or something gets moved up to the third line at some point during the game. So maybe an Eller Mangiapane 2-man, but honestly, if I'm playing the Caps, I'm really focusing on the power play guys. On the Montreal side, like, it is a tough matchup for Montreal, one, in this sense that the Dubois line has been really good defensively. 2.2 expected goals against per 60 since the Four Nations break. Here's the crux of the entire thing. Washington's goaltending basically fell apart over the final 2 months of the season. Lindgren was terrible. Logan Thompson was terrible and then got hurt. Like, Logan Thompson, up until like the middle of January, was arguably the best goalie in the league. Logan Thompson, over his last 20 games, I was looking at goals saved above expected from Evolving Hockey. On a per minute basis, he was in like Joseph Woll, Stuart Skinner territory from the middle of January to the end of the season. So it's one of those things, like, if Montreal gets the Logan Thompson of November and December, this series is probably over in 4, maybe 5 games. Montreal gets the Logan Thompson of mid-January till now, Montreal can win the series and they can score a lot of goals along the way because Thompson has been legitimately terrible, like I said, for 3 months now. Now, he was injured for a couple weeks out of that, but even still. So that's why, like, if I'm playing single entry, I'd probably avoid Montreal 1. If I'm playing a bunch of lineups in that $10 tonight, maybe I have like 1 or 2, because no matter what, this is still one of the best 5-on-5 scoring lines in the league. Like, over the entire season, over the last 20 games, 4.5 goals per 60 at 5-on-5. Like, that's a bad power play. And that's what they're doing at even strength. Now, it's a tough matchup, like I said, against the Dubois line. But if Logan Thompson's not sharp, Washington could be in trouble. So, like, if I'm playing like 20 or 30 lineups here tonight, maybe I have like 2 or 3 of Montreal ones. I do think if I'm full stacking a depth line, is probably the Dvorak, Gallagher, Anderson line. At the same token, like, Ivan Demidov at 3,700. It's one of those things, like, I do worry about ice time. He did not play much in his second game when Montreal had the lead, and they're trying to hold it to get into the playoffs. So that's my concern, is like maybe Montreal gets out to like a 1-0 lead after the first period or something, and then Demidov plays like 11 minutes. Like, I do think that's a legitimate concern here tonight. But Demidov, 3,700 one-off, I think is perfectly fine. I think a 2-man of like Evans and Armia is perfectly fine as well. Like, Jake Evans plays all the time with the empty net. Joel Armia plays sometimes with the empty net. When Montreal beat Washington in Washington a few months ago, when Washington had their full lineup, it was the fourth line that was probably Montreal's best line that night. So, like, a 2-man of like Evans and Armia if you're playing a Colorado power play stack. But honestly, I think this is a game about the top guys. So Washington power play, Montreal 1 mainly for me.
Yeah, and if you're going to play Washington, you just have to deal with the ownership, but that's not something that I truly worry about. There's plenty of ways to get different. St. Louis Blues with a 2.3 total heading into Winnipeg. The Jets have a 3.1. Winnipeg running back the same lineup as game 1. Connor Scheifele, Iafallo, Perfidi, Niederreiter, Nemestikov, Lowry, Appleton, Tanev, Barron, Anderson, Dolan, Gustafsson. St. Louis flip-flopping Snuggerud and Neighbors, so they are going Thomas, Buchnevich, Snuggerud, Kyrou, Neighbors, Shen, Bolduc, Sundqvist, Joseph. Now, they had to make that switch. Like, we talked about the big loss of Holloway. It wasn't just the one play at the end of the game where Snuggerud was kind of just like watching Scheifele make that cross-side pass. It was Kyrou, Shen, and Snuggerud were not on the ice for one shot attempt 4.
No, one shot on goal.
One shot on goal. Yeah. They did not have one shot on goal.
Yeah, Braden Shen individually was on the ice for one St. Louis shot attempt at 5-on-5 in that entire game. One shot attempt.
Yeah, it's insane how bad Winnipeg's middle six ran over the Blues' middle six. So they had to make that switch. Like, they feel like maybe, Thomas Buchnevich can shelter him a little bit, putting Neighbors on that second line gives them a little, as Torts likes to say, gumption. Again, like, I don't really like St. Louis here. If anything, it would be Thomas Buchnevich Snuggerud at 14-6. Like, offensively speaking, like, they're fine. The problem is they're still in Winnipeg. It's still a really tough matchup, and it's still Connor Hellebuck. They have the lowest total on the slate. They're coming in under 5% projected. So, if you're doing MME, you get a little bit there, fine. That second line at 14K with Neighbors there, like, I guess if you get there in MME, like, I think I'm pretty much out on the Blues in single entry. I think, if you're making 10, 20, is it a 150 max tonight? It might be.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you're more likely to get to a little bit of St. Louis here. Like, I think they had their ceiling performance in Winnipeg in game 1, getting like 3 goals on Hellebuck. I worry. I not only worry about them offensively, I'm worried that Snuggerud might not even make it the whole game on that top line. Like, they may just like move Joseph up or something like that. Like, they're really trying to hide him. It's like a little league team putting the worst kid in right field. Like, they're just trying to find a safe landing zone for him. I don't particularly love the Blues here. Someone in the chat said St. Louis 3, like a 2-man of Sundqvist Bolduc, I guess, is in a basket for me if you're power play stacking the expensive stuff. Winnipeg is more interesting here. I didn't it's like, listen, like, I know the top line scored 3 goals here, and Alex Iafallo, every game he plays on the top line is shutting me up more and more. But they're 18,700 with 20.3% projected ownership. Like, I think because of the amount of penalties we saw the refs call in all these games, I'm more likely to say they're fine. I just don't want to eat that ownership. So it's like, if you want to, like, I really want to play Scheifele and Connor. It's just Alex Iafallo there at 18-7. It's not as bad as the Connor McDavid line at 19K with Connor Brown, but it's just like Alex Iafallo just doesn't do much for me on the power play, even though they scored, power play goal. Like, they're fine. I don't love them because of Iafallo. I'd be more likely to do like a Scheifele, Connor, Morrissey type of stack. You know what I mean? So if you want to go to that second line of Nemestikov, Niederreiter, Perfidi, they're 11-5 coming in at 15%. That's just a crazy amount of ownership to me at 11,500. Like, I know they scored and this and that. I'm more likely to go to the third line again, Lowry, Appleton, Tanev. You don't have to full stack. They're coming in at 6.5% projected. Lowry always plays with the empty net. He gets decent minutes for the price. I'm more likely to go back to like a one-off Lowry, or if you really need, a cheap second person on that line, Brandon Tanev. It's just there's too much ownership on that second line for me. I'm more likely to eat the ownership playing the top line than I would be the second line. So for me, it's Winnipeg 1. I like Winnipeg 3 as a filler. The Blues are a tough sell in single entry. If you get to them in MME, you get to them in MME.
Yeah, I think your point about them trying to hide Jimmy Snuggerud is probably a fair one. Like one of the reasons why they're trying him all across the top six is I don't think they want to break up that third line of Sundqvist, Joseph, Bolduc, because it has been a good third line for them, and they're trying to find someone else to make the top six work with Holloway out, and it's obviously we saw the results of that in game one. I agree with you. I don't know how long Snuggerud lasts on the top line. Like if this is 2-0 Winnipeg at the start of the second period, I would feel fairly confident saying Zach Bolduc's going to be on that top line. That's why like I feel kind of nervous about stacking St. Louis 1. St. Louis 2. And the thing is with St. Louis 1, I was looking at Robert Thomas and Buchnevich when they've had wingers other than Neighbors and Kyrou on the line, because they have spent some time with Shen. They have spent some time with Bolduc. 205 minutes with anybody but Neighbors or Kyrou on the top line. 65 shot attempts, 3.1 expected goals, 3.2 actual goals. So they've been really good offensively. Defensively, 62 shot attempts against, 3.2 expected goals against, 3.2 actual goals against. They've been getting run over defensively. So that's why I really don't, unless St. Louis can build a lead early, I don't know if Snuggerud lasts long on that top line. Like the fact that they made this change after one game kind of tells you how short the leash is here. So I think I'm kind of out on St. Louis 1. I'm out on St. Louis 2. Like that line Dylan Holloway really was the engine of that line. Like I am a pretty big fan of Jordan Kyrou. I think Braden Shen's kind of underrated. I don't know if those two plus Jake Neighbors is enough to overcome, because that Winnipeg middle six is a buzzsaw. Like even with Nikolai Ehlers injured, like that Winnipeg second line, carrying by shot attempts, 3.3 goals per 60. The Winnipeg third line carrying by shot attempts, 2.8 expected goals for, 2.5 actual goals for. Like both lines have been pretty good. I do think that they can kind of just carry the play against St. Louis too. Now, the thing with St. Louis too is like they're coming in with 6.4% ownership, and the Thomas Buchnevich power play got a lot of ice time in that first game. I think they got like 3.5 minutes, and the second power play unit got like 45 seconds. Now it was because they scored twice, so that obviously helps. But I do think that there's kind of a delineation between the top and secondary power play now. So if I were to play any of the top two St. Louis lines, it would probably be Thomas Buchnevich, Snuggerud, but I would be kind of tempted to leave that third wheel off and just do like a Thomas Buchnevich and then maybe add in a defenseman or something like that. Other than that, I think St. Louis 3 is the line that I have the most interest in. It's Bolduc, Sundqvist, and Joseph. They were pretty good during the regular season. They didn't have a great game on Saturday night. Sundqvist did score, so we'll take that, but they didn't get a ton of ice time. So like a two-man of like Sundqvist, Bolduc, if you need to fill in, your expensive Colorado or expensive Edmonton or something like that. Other than that, I'm kind of out on the Blues. On the Winnipeg side, like it does suck that Winnipeg 1 is sitting at 20% projected ownership. The thing is like, I do think St. Louis's top line is genuinely worse now than it was in game 1. Now that Snuggerud's there, not Jake Neighbors. And that line got a ton of ice time in that game. Like normally you'll see like Kyle Connor and Scheifele like 20 to 21 minutes. And then Iafallo like around 18. Alex Iafallo played 21.5 minutes in that game. Kyle Connor was at like 22.5 minutes in that game. That's kind of the problem. If these guys are going to play 21 to 23 minutes against a top line that is going to be worse defensively because of the third wheel on there, it's kind of hard to get away from them. I'd be almost tempted to just make it a full power play stack, like Winnipeg 1 plus Perfidi plus Morrissey. I have no problem playing Perfidi either. Like the guy played, I think it was 17.5 minutes in that other game. Cole Perfidi, over his last 20 games, including the first game of the playoffs, he has 40 shots. So like he's getting involved offensively. He's getting good ice time. He's on the top power play unit. Like there are reasons to add him into that Winnipeg 1 stack. So I think it might almost be like a Winnipeg power play stack I have the most interest in. like Winnipeg 4, we gave a shout out on the show on Saturday, and they actually did get there. They also played, I think, was it Anderson, Dolan, and Gustafson played 8 minutes, and Morgan Barry played 10. Like, I wouldn't count on that repeating. So, Winnipeg 3, I think, is perfectly fine. But for me, this game is about the Winnipeg top line. Turn it into a power play stack if you want. Other than that, St. Louis 3 on the other side.
Yeah. Blues. Sad. Colorado Avalanche with a 3.2 total. Heading into Dallas, the Stars have a 2.8. Looks like lineups are going to be the same. Heiskanen still out. Colorado going McKinnon, Netchis, Lehkonen, Nishushkin, Nelson, Drouin, Colton. Well, Colton is a game time decision here tonight. They said he's not. He got hurt in game 1. Gabriel Landeskog did not stay on with the extras. So I would assume either him or Miles Wood are going to be back in the lineup here tonight on that third line. So just wait and see if you are playing Colorado 3. Dallas going Rantanen, Johnston, Benn, Duchesne, Sagan, Marchment, Hintz, Granlund, Dodonov. Now this game 1 was 5-1 Colorado in Dallas. Generally speaking, I don't see much changing other than maybe Dallas getting a little bit more offensive-minded, scoring a couple more goals. Now, Colorado 1 is 20,800, the highest on the board, 33% top 2 stack, 16% projected ownership. Now, we do have some data here. We always talk about Colorado power play guys playing the most minutes, and that rang true. McKinnon, Netchis, Nishushkin, all over 20 minutes. Johnny Drouin, 17 minutes, 48 seconds. Lehkonen plays on the top line. He played 18 minutes. Not a single other forward played over 15. So these guys get pumped minutes. And that's with Colton getting hurt. Look at the bottom guys, like Charlie Coyle, 13 minutes. Parker Kelly, 10 minutes. Drury, 11. Logan O'Connor, 13. Like, they're just playing these top guys. It wasn't even a close game either. I mean, it was kind of into the third period.
It was close until like the second half of the third period. Yeah. Like, it was fairly close up until the third period.
Yeah. The point is, like, if it's fairly close, none of these bottom 6 guys are playing. It's going to be the big boys. So, like, again, for me on the Colorado side, I'm either full stack in Colorado 1, or I'm doing some sort of Colorado power play stack. Colorado 2, it's like, no. Like, if I'm doing anything, I'm leaving off Lehkonen and adding in one or both of Nishushkin and Drouin. It's just like I don't want to stack Colorado 2 without McKinnon or Netchis. Those are the 2 most important forwards. So it's Colorado 1, Colorado power play for me. On the Dallas side, the minutes allocation was kind of interesting on their side. No one played over 20 minutes, but Duchesne and Johnston were the only 2 above 19. Rantanen played 18. Hintz played 16:56, and then no one else played above 16 minutes. This is a playoff game. It's like they're doing the same thing they're kind of doing in the regular season. They're splitting ice time all across these lines here. It's like, because of that, I'd be more likely to do some sort of Johnston Rantanen stack here. Like, going to Duchesne, Sagan, Marchment, I still think is fine. They're 13,600. They all play decent minutes for their price. That would still be the line I'm going to. They're coming in at 14.5% projected, though. It's a bit much. It's a tough matchup. I do think they can score, though. So, like, if I was going to do a full even strength line stack, it would be that Dallas second line. But if you're looking for, power play minutes and guys play the most minutes, I'd maybe go like Johnston, Rantanen, Duchesne, something like that. I don't have a ton of interest in Hintz, Granlund, Dodonov. Cliffy highlighted that on Saturday. Hintz without Robertson is a mess. So it's like 2.4 expected goals over a couple seasons or something like that. But For me, on the Dallas side, it would be Johnston, Rantanen, Duchesne. If you do need that filler stack, I'm fine with Duchesne, Sagan, Marchment, because they outside of Duchesne, Sagan, and Marchment were right around 16 minutes. And for 13,600, that's fine. It's just the ownership thing. So, but this is easily a Colorado power play game for me until Heiskanen gets back, if he gets back.
Yeah, here's the thing with that first game is that all told, I don't think like Dallas played fine. Honestly, I remember their coach said after the game, Pete DeBoer said after the game, he thought it was their best game in like 3 weeks or something like that. I would probably say like in at least a month. And, if you look at, just the numbers, like the expected goal share was 54% for Colorado, which isn't that bad at 5-on-5. Overall, Dallas carried the expected goal share at nearly 56% because the power play did well. So Dallas, and I watched the game from start to finish. Like I thought Dallas, especially after like the first 10 minutes, actually played fairly well, and they lost by 4 goals. So like, it's one of those things. Like if that was Dallas's best game, and that was pretty close to the best game they could possibly play given their injuries, and they still lost by 4 goals. So it's like, what happens if they're 5% worse than that tonight, or 10% worse than that tonight? Like the McKinnon line, I think, had a 95% expected goal share or something like that. Like they just ran over Dallas. Ottinger played well. And the Dallas depth actually played well against the Colorado depth. And like I said, it was probably the best game they could possibly play, and they still lost by 4 goals. Now, saying that they lost by 4 goals is kind of disingenuous because, McKinnon had an empty netter, and then Charlie Coyle added a late one after that. So like it was the 3-1 game, but still they would have lost by multiple goals, and it was the best game they could play. So it's like, how close is this series actually going to be? We'll start on the Dallas side. You mentioned Hintz. Like Hintz without Johnston or Robertson on his line, 50 shot attempts, 2.2 expected goals, 0.4 actual goals per 60 this season. Just not anything to write home about. And it was just as bad last year. Hintz topped out, like you said, nearly 17 minutes. It's just not a lot of ice time. They moved the Donoff off that line. It looks like Colin Blackwell is going to come in. I imagine he just goes to the 4th line, but like, how long is the Donoff going to stay on that top line? Like, I'm just out on Dallas 1. Dallas 2 is always interesting to me. I thought that Marchment, Sagan, Duchesne line was probably Dallas's best line in that game. And again, they'll probably see some depth matchups. Dallas doesn't really hard match all that much, so they'll probably see some depth matchups, which is good for that line. They're not coming in very expensive at 13,600. They are coming in with a lot of ownership at 14.5%, but honestly, 14% owned for what is probably Dallas's best offensive line right now, I think is perfectly fine at 13,600. So I think Dallas 2 is very much in play. Matt Duchesne, it sucks that they're split up on the power play, but if that gets Matt Duchesne 19 to 20 minutes, I think that's a trade-off kind of worth taking. So I'm perfectly fine with Dallas 2. Rantanen, Johnston, and Ben, I'm a little less high on. 16,400, I think, is a reasonable price for them. But we'll get to Los Angeles later. Like, there are a couple Los Angeles lines in that price range. Washington's only $500 more expensive. So, like, I do think there are just other lines in that price range I'd rather play. So it's basically just Dallas 2. All that said, this is still a Colorado 1 game. Colorado's top line was the best line in that game. Even with the team scoring 5 goals, like the top line didn't have a massive game, but McKinnon scored twice, Lehkonen scored once, Nate just had an assist. Like, they were really, really good. That Lehkonen goal was actually really funny. That soccer kick as he was falling to the ice or whatever it was. Pardon me, but we'll take it. So yeah, this is a Colorado one game. I don't think Dallas really has any line that could shut them down. They've been fantastic all season. 4.4 expected goals, 3.6 actual goals. They're fantastic in game one. So I'm going right back, excuse me, to Colorado one. Not in so much on the depth. If you want to do like a two-man, wait to see what the lineup looks like. Maybe Landeskog plays. I think it's going to be Miles Wood. Either way, like a Coyle, Wood two-man or Coyle, Landeskog two-man. If Landeskog plays, like, okay. But for me, this is easily a Colorado one game. So Colorado one / Colorado power play, and then Dallas two on the other side.
Yeah, it's funny because like Rannon and Johnston played 18 minutes or whatever. Ben played 12. So that's the issue with that price, especially with the Kings sitting right there at a similar price. Let's talk about it. Edmonton Oilers with a 2.7 total heading into Los Angeles. The Kings have a 2.8. This is the third or fourth year in a row. I said 98 the other day. That's what it feels like. But
yeah,
Kings are going. Yeah. Kings are going Fiala, Byfield, Laferriere, Kempe, Kopitar, Kuzmenko, Deneau, Fogle, Moore. Edmonton going McDavid, Hyman, Connor Brown for reasons. Draisaitl, Arvidsson, Podkolzin, Nugent Hopkins, Skinner, Kapanen, Henrique, Perry, Janmark.
Oh, and while we were on the air, they said Trent Frederick is a game time decision, and if he does play, he probably takes Kapanen's spot.
Has he played a game with Edmonton?
Did he play one game and then get hurt again? He played one game, played 7 minutes, got hurt, left again.
I'm a Trent Frederick slappy, but like this is not the time to go, Anyway, we have a $4.20 his go-to super chat, $4.20, and his name's Hypno Toad. You connect the dots. Thank you very much for the super chat. Mick Dry, my man. Good luck, everybody, tonight. They are coming in with no ownership, and we're about to talk about it. But yeah, thank you for the super chat. And Mick Dry, your man.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the super chat. Hopefully we can get a takedown here tonight. Will it be McDry? I don't know. Let's talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, we'll start on that Edmonton side. McDavid, Hyman, Connor Brown, third most expensive line of the night behind Montreal 1 and Colorado 1. 9% top two stack, 1.6% projected ownership. It's like, why is Connor Brown there? Not 100% sure. If this was like 3 seasons ago, I'd be fine with it. Like, his knees have been absolutely destroyed since then. I'd be happier with Corey Perry up there than Connor Brown. And that price of $19,000 going up against Kopitar, Kempe, Kuzmenko, and the Kings' top defensive pair just really isn't doing much for me. The issue that I'm running into is that like Connor McDavid's projected for under 2%. Same with Hyman. Even if they come in 5%, it's a 4-game slate. And Cliffy mentioned it on Saturday. What did they score? 25 power play goals or something like that?
25 power play goals in 18 games against the Kings in the playoffs over the last 3 years.
Yeah. And we did see an uptick in penalty calls for some reason in this first round. Whether you want to believe that will continue here tonight. Listen, anytime McDavid is that low owned, we talk about these superstars at low ownership. It is horrifying. Now, this is arguably the worst matchup in the league for him. The Kings are arguably the best defensive team in the league. Darcy Kemper ended the season on an unbelievable hot streak. That being said, it's still Connor McDavid, and he's still projected for almost no ownership. Now, in single entry, it's an interesting thing because, you want to play the Washingtons, you want to play the Winnipegs, you want to play the Colorados. I honestly think McDavid, from an ownership standpoint, is one of the best plays on the slate. Now, matchup-wise, it's the worst, but we've seen him go into Boston with the Bergerons there and score twice. So I don't think, I'm overly concerned about the matchup. Push comes to shove. Like, I'm obviously going to go to Colorado before I go to Edmonton here. Like, I'm not that crazy. I mean, I am crazy, but not that crazy. I do really like going to Edmonton here tonight because of the ownership. You want to go to Draisaitl, Arvidsson, Podkolzin at 16,900. That line has been excellent all season. The one issue they've had was finishing. Like creating, they are great. Finishing, you don't see many of their kids running around. We'll just leave it at that. But they are 16,900, coming in at 3%. Draisaitl's projected under 3%. It's like Draisaitl is in the Hart like he arguably should win the Hart this year. You know what I mean? So like this Edmonton team has unbelievable firepower. They have a great power play. LA's penalty kill is fine, but sometimes their goalies have their lapses. If I'm playing even 3 max, I'm getting in some sort of Edmonton power play stack here. Like, if they go off at 3-5% or whatever, you're laughing. And of all the low-owned spots on this slate, this is the one that most likely they can go nuclear. So I kind of want to get Edmonton here just because of how low-owned they are. Again, it's the worst matchup on the board. This is the best defensive team in the league. It's just these guys are coming in so low-owned. The third line, I don't have a tremendous amount of interest in. If you want to one-off Nugent Hopkins because he's on the power play and there's absolutely no ownership on him, fine. The Kings side is a lot more interesting to me for a single entry standpoint. Fiala, Byfield, LaFerriere. That's the reason, I don't care if Rantanen and Wyatt Johnston play 20 minutes. This line's $1,000 cheaper than that line, and they're going to play heavy minutes. They've been excellent all season. They're coming in only at 12.5% projected, a little bit of negative leverage. I think it's my favorite line in this game, Byfield, Fiala, LaFerriere. If you want to go to Kempe, Kopitar, Kuzmenko, I think that's fine as well. They're $1,100 more expensive than that Fiala line, though. But if you're into the power play stuff, which is certainly viable, the issue is the Kings' power play is kind of bad. It did improve a little bit with Kuzmenko. I think that's fine. They're coming in at 5%. They're the lowest owned Kings line. That third line's even coming in with 9% projected. They're 13,100. I think they're a fine play as well. For me, though, I'm going to Fiala, Byfield, LaFerriere. They've just been good all season. You get Fiala on the power play. Byfield is coming into his own. This is the Kings' best chance to actually win this series for once in the last 4 years. So favorite line in this game is LA2. I am very scared about fading McDavid and Draisaitl on single entry just because of the ownership.
Yeah, I was looking at the matchups between these two teams during the season. 2 of the games came in the final 2 weeks of the season when Edmonton was dealing with all those injuries. So there's really not a whole lot to go off of from during the season. Again, we mentioned it. I think it was on Saturday. We were talking about the series a little bit. Once Hyman got back healthy in early December, and they had all their top guys in the lineup, the top power play unit was one of the best in the NHL. They were at 12.5 goals per 60 minutes, which is just an elite mark. So if this power play can get rolling, they can absolutely just blow the Kings out of the water. And you mentioned the penalties uptick. It was something I wrote about in my newsletter on Saturday. If you look at regular season power play opportunities per game and postseason power play opportunities per game over the last 3 years, there's actually more in the playoffs. It's not much, but it goes up slightly in the playoffs. And there's more in the first 2 rounds than there is in the conference finals or the finals. That's when the penalty rates kind of go down. Early on in the playoffs, you're going to see a lot of power plays. So that's one reason why I'm with you. I do have interest in Edmonton here tonight. Now, if you look at the Edmonton projections, a lot of them have very bad point per dollar projections. McDavid's at 1.13, Hyman's at 1.17, Nugent Hopkins is at 1.01, which I don't think I've ever seen before. These are these guys are not projected well because of the low total, because the Kings are such a good team, because they're split across 3 lines, like all that stuff. By the same token, this power play goes 2 for 4 here tonight, and then they go and get an empty net goal. Like, kind of do what Winnipeg did on Saturday night. Like, this is a line that can absolutely just, kind of roll over the entire slate here. So I would be pretty tempted to do a top power play stack. If I were to one-off anybody, it's probably Draisaitl, honestly, just because he does put up shot volume. He still gets a lot of minutes. He has the highest projection, the best point per dollar projection of their forwards other than Connor Brown, which is, again, just really funny stuff. So if you want to do like a Draisaitl one-off or like a Draisaitl Bouchard 2-man or something like that, I think that's perfectly fine. But if you want to just go make McDavid, Hyman, Draisaitl 3-man stack, I think that's okay as well. Like, the Kings penalty kill down the stretch was good, not great. 9th in the league by goals against per 60 minutes over the final 2 months of the season. So 9th in the league is good, but they're nowhere near the top like the Floridas and the New Jerseys and stuff like that. So this is a penalty kill that can be had. If I'm playing single entry, I think I still consider them. If I'm playing a bunch of lineups, like, I absolutely, like, I have at least one with some sort of Edmonton stack in it. On the Los Angeles side, I'm interested to see how they do the matchups, because the Danault line have been taking a lot of top line matchups. I assume they go out against McDavid, and it's like, who after that is going to go out against Draisaitl? Because that Draisaitl line had typically been pretty good defensively, whereas the third line was not. I'm assuming that they put Byfield out against Draisaitl, and then they put Kuzmenko and Kopitar and them out against the third and fourth lines from Edmonton. So that's kind of why I think the line I have interest in from the Kings side is that Kopitar, Kempe, Kuzmenko line. 16,500, 5.2% ownership. I'm assuming they get bottom 6 matchups for the most part. Against Edmonton, and those are great matchups for Los Angeles. All 3 guys are on the top power play unit. It was really good with Kuzmenko there, 11 goals per 60. Now, that was shooting a little over 22%, which is a bit high. But it's not like the Edmonton penalty kill was necessarily great. I do think the Kings have 3 playable lines here, but at 16,500, I think their Kings 1 is one of those mid-price lines that I would be heavily considering, because I think they get great 5-on-5 matchups. They are perfectly correlated. Kempe and Kopitar are going to get around 18 minutes. They're going to be near the top of ice time, along with Byfield and Fiala. So I think for me, it's Kings 1, but I'm really, really tempted with Edmonton here.
Yeah. 5.5 total. You want both sides. Always how it goes. But let's talk about defensemen here. Top of the board, 2 guys, 7K and up. Makar, Bouchard. Makar's 8K, Bouchard's 7K. After that, you have Morrissey, Nurse, Carlson, Matheson, Harley, Chychrun, Hudson. Honestly, like, after Makar and Bouchard, I don't know how much interest I'd have in playing Bouchard here at 7K. I think I would reserve that for, Edmonton stacks. I'm more likely to one-off Makar than Bouchard. I do really like Carlson and Chychrun. They're both on the top power play unit. Nurse is going to play a ton of minutes, but, like, for me, I go Makar 1, Carlson 2, Chychrun 3. I do like Harley. He played 27 minutes. If Dallas is going to score a bunch of goals, there's most likely he's going to be involved at some point. So I think these guys in the 5K range are more enticing than, the Bouchards and the Makars. But obviously, is Makar 1 for me.
Yeah, Makar is at the top for point projections here tonight. I don't think that's a big surprise for anybody. Thomas Harley is number 2, and his point per dollar projection is at an even 2.0. He did play 27.5 minutes in that game. Again, like, if Dallas is going to break through, it's probably going to come from Harley on defense, at least facilitating somehow. So I really don't mind Harley at 5,300, but obviously it's Makar at the top. Bouchard, like, it's interesting. He's an interesting play because he's not going to carry that much ownership. He's probably going to be under 5%. And like, if that Edmonton power play does go nuclear, like, he's going to figure in. But it's almost one of those situations where I'd probably just find the $1,000 and go play Makar instead. Mid-price range, like Harley, like I just mentioned. Darnell Nurse is interesting. I was looking at the numbers for him and Bouchard on the ice together, like 200 minutes over the last 2 seasons, 4.2 expected goals, 3.5 actual goals. But the defensive numbers are pretty bad. So that's another kind of another reason why I don't mind the Kings here tonight. But yeah, Nurse for sure. Jacob Chikrin, absolutely. I think I'd rather play Jake Wallman than Nurse, just because Wallman's coming in with a higher projection, better point per dollar projection, cheaper price. Esa Lindell got good minutes for Dallas the other night, so he's fine again. Devin Taves, he got off to a slow start this season, but he was a lot better offensively in the second half. He scored in game 1, so I don't mind Devin Taves. Colton Parayko, again, as long as he's under 5K, he's perfectly fine. Caden Gooley, Dylan Sandberg, under 4K. Philip Broberg, Rasmus Sandin, running the second power play unit for Washington, fine as well. Brett Kulak, like, he's the number 4 defenseman now for Edmonton, and he's going to play over 20 minutes, so I don't mind Kulak. If you're looking under 3K, I think the 3 names are Lyubushkin, Lindgren, and Mikey Anderson. I don't really want to play Mikey Anderson, but if he's going to play 22, 23 minutes against an Edmonton team with subpar goaltending and whose defense has gotten worse because Ekholm is hurt, I do think you got to at least consider him if you need a punt defenseman.
Yeah, I just throw Joel Edmondson into that mix just because he's going to play 20 minutes. Like, I don't know why they love Joel Edmondson, but he's going to be out there for 20. What he does with it, what Mikey Anderson does with it, I don't know. Let's talk about goalies here. I would assume it's Logan Thompson. Everything points to Logan Thompson for Washington here tonight. He's the most expensive on the board. I have an uneasy feeling about Logan Thompson here tonight. Connor Hellebuck would be the guy, AK and up. I don't mind Mackenzie Blackwood again, but like, it would be Hellebuck. Darcy Kemper is very interesting to me. It's 7,800. The Kings do lock it down there. He would be the guy. Sam Montembeault, 7K. Listen, like, Washington is an interesting team to be a 1 seed because it's not like they're blowing the doors off everybody. You saw with once Thompson stopped saving every puck at 940 or whatever it was, how much they struggled for stretches. Montembeault had been excellent since the Four Nations. For 7K, I'm willing to take a chance on it. I'm more likely to play Montembeault than Bennington, more likely to play Montembeault than Skinner. I think Kemper and Ottinger are interesting plays as well. Like, Ottinger is going to see the volume. But for me, like, I think for me, my favorite plays are Hellebuck and Kemper.
Yeah, over 8K, it's Hellebuck for me. Like, if I can save $200 over Logan Thompson and play Connor Hellebuck, like, it just feels like a pretty easy play to me. Under 8K, like, I do have Stuart Skinner there. And trust me, I get it. He is very hot and cold. Like, I once saw Stuart Skinner described as a goalie that has no B game. He either has an A game or an F game. And I think that's fairly appropriate. It's like, he's going to save 29 of 30 shots here tonight, or he's going to get pulled after giving up 3 goals on 7 shots. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to be one of those 2 things probably. So if I'm looking for like a mid-price goalie, I think it's Skinner. Like, I don't mind Montembeault, but I think if I'm going under 7,500, I go back to Ottinger. It's another one of those things. Like, he's probably, if Dallas does win games, he's probably going to be a reason why. So for me, it's Hellebuck amongst the expensive guys, Stuart Skinner in the mid-price range, then Ottinger for me. I think Montembeault's fine because he's in that Ottinger bin where, like, if Montreal wins here tonight, I don't think it's like a 6-5 game. I think it's like 3-1 with an empty netter, and Montembeault plays extremely well. That's kind of what I see. Other than that, like for me, it would probably be Ottinger or Skinner and then Ottinger.
Yep. We should be back tomorrow. Like, we're going to try to be here as much as possible until teams start getting eliminated. We'll have to see what the GPPs look like, but I would imagine they'll be fine because the Tampa Florida series is starting tomorrow. So we should be back tomorrow. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
I'm going to the Los Angeles Kings, going against the goalie that I was just talking about, actually, and I'm going with Adrian Kempe.
Oh, I love. You don't have to convince me on Adrian Kempe. Let's see here. Dallas makes it interesting here tonight. Whether they win, I don't know, but I'm going Wyatt Johnston.
Oh, I like it.
We will be back tomorrow. After that, we'll play it day by day, but we're going to try to be here as much as possible, like we said. Good luck, everybody, tonight. We'll see you in the Discord, and enjoy watching some playoff hockey.
Good luck tonight, everybody.